welcome back to Conspirinormal. I'm excited about this episode that we have coming up for you tonight. I mean, we kind of have a little bit of a round table because I, of course, have Sergio with me tonight, and I also have Adam Gorightly returning to the show for the first time in a little while. So, welcome back, Adam.
Hey, thanks again, as always.
Yeah, yeah, we always love to have you. You've been on the show ever since I think the episode 8, I think,
Hmm.
or 10 or somewhere around there was the first
Yeah.
episode we ever had you on. Very, very early back in like 2012, and you were one of the first guests that I ever wanted to get on. So, you've been on Conspiranormal a lot. You were part of Strange Realities in 2022, and Christopher Graybill is also with us, who is the director of the documentary film Saucer, Spooks, and Kooks, which is based off the book of the same name, which we
And he was
talked
on
about
Strange
with.
Realities as well.
Yeah. And I was gonna mention that. Yeah, Christopher Graybill, you were at Strange Realities 2022,
That's right.
and I think that in some ways was part of the process of you making this film. And I also love the fact that Adam in the documentary film wore a Strange Realities t-shirt, which was awesome.
Yes, sir.
And we also have Chris Corry with us tonight as well. Chris returning to the show. Chris has been on with us several times as a guest. He's been a guest co-host as several times as well. So he's got some questions for you guys as well. But Christopher Graybill. Well, actually, Chris Corey, introduce yourself. People.
No, hey,
It's been a
I'm just
while.
here as a fan of
Yeah,
a fan of the genre.
You
fan of
know,
the genre. Yeah, yeah. Well, we always love having you along for the ride. But I thought I would start with you, Christopher Graybill, because Saucer Spooks and Kooks. I remember it came out in 2021. That's when we did the interview with Mr. Gorightly here, and uh, now it is also a documentary film that you have directed and made. And I am curious how this whole thing started with you, how you met Mr. Go Rightly here and the genesis of this project.
Yeah, sure. I was in Japan living there for a little while during COVID. It was all locked down and you really couldn't go out and do much. And I was working from home and really going stir crazy. So I was like, I'm going to make that UFO movie that I always wanted to make for the last, 20 years or whatever.
hell yeah.
So um, I started looking around for books maybe to adapt or maybe figure out what story I was going to do. And in that process, I was finding all of these Japanese Nippon TV documentaries on YouTube, and that stuff was just like going through all of the old characters that were so popular back in the 80s and 90s, um, which is kind of where I came into the UFO story. When I got interested in it in maybe mid 90s or something. But so then a friend of mine told me about Adam's book, and I started reading it, and it was like the the Japanese documentaries were like a mirror to Adam's book. So it felt like a nice synchronicity of like, oh, there's all this footage. Here's, this book in my hand, and um, I was like, well, if I can find anything new to bring to the table for, any kind of footage or of Benowitz or anything like that, and then I tracked down some audio of him, which is in the movie. And so I was like, okay, I'll contact Adam, which I did not know at that point. And I had a hard time finding his email, so I contacted him through Facebook, and I wrote him this long pitch on Messenger, and he got back to me really quickly. It was like almost immediately. Um, I can't remember what it said, but it was very just generic, like, "Hey, nice to meet you," and Um,
Yeah.
and so I was like, oh, weird. Okay, so um, it turns out it was like this AI chatbot that responds to you immediate. I don't know, like I guess it
Yeah.
was because it was a fan site, like a Facebook fan site. So they had just automated like responses for him for some reason. So I was chatting with this chatbot thinking it was him. I was like, well, wait a minute, what's happening? So anyway, so that's how we met, and that's how I kind of got interested in the into doing the film.
That's awesome. I've heard a lot of filmmakers recently say that during that period of time, they really, started really cool passion projects, and I've seen some really great, especially documentaries lately, with that same kind of story.
Oh, yeah, well, it was a great time to incubate. So,
Yeah, and you actually came to, as Sergio mentioned, you actually came to Strange Realities that same year that in 2022, that same year
yeah,
that
we
Adam
were I
was
was
there.
supposed to or we
Yeah,
were supposed to interview Aaron Golias for that, and then he was having some car troubles, and so
that's right. That
yeah,
was
he had
that
to leave
year.
early, and then that same
Yeah,
weekend I also lost my phone, and so it was just like this big bummer of a weekend for me, but I had a lot of fun listening to all the lectures and everything.
you lost your phone in Nashville.
I lost it in LA in the airport somewhere.
Oh
So
no.
there's a whole
Oh
story
no.
about that, but I won't go into that.
Mr. Chan and MIB put, comes
Well,
into
I
the
don't know. I
story.
don't know. I think you should probably. I've heard the story, but I think you should actually tell the story on this show. You had your own MIB encounter. I
Oh,
heard about this.
I don't know if I'm ready for this, but um, I was sitting waiting for the plane, and it was getting starting to like the lounge area was starting to fill up with passengers, like getting ready to board. And this guy sits down next to me or across from me, and he's wearing a black fedora, black sunglasses, a black COVID mask. He's wearing like a black suit with a black shirt, black tie, black gloves, and he does look a little like, yellow, greenish Asian skin. And he starts pulling out all of these devices, like multiple cell phones, multiple iPads. He's plugging things in, he's unplugging things, he's rearranging, he's organizing, and he's like on like five different devices. And I'm just enthralled with this guy. And I keep looking at him like, and I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't stare at him so much. I love people watching, so um, yeah, they call us for the flight or like my zone or whatever. And so I get up and something is telling me, I'm just like thinking like I should turn around and like look at this guy one more time just to make sure he's he's real. And so I I turn around and I was like, I'll just check and make sure I got everything in my seat. And I looked in my chair and everything to make sure had everything. And so I had all my bags, and I didn't look at him again after that. And I got on the plane, I sat down and I started looking for my phone. I was like, oh, my phone's gone. And I asked the flight attendant if I could go look in the lounge real fast. And she's like, no, you can't get back on after that. And so that, over the rest of the week or the weekend, I was like stuck without my phone, and it was like this big thing. And then I start listening to all these weird UFO lectures, and I'm like, shit, was that guy in MIB? Did I have a Men in Black experience? It sounds so absurd, but
It's
um,
usually how it goes, right?
I guess so. So that's my story.
You might have gotten front loaded for the weekend that was ahead, right? Like it was
So
part of the journey.
I guess so. I get back to LA and I go to the Lost and Found, and the phone is there, and I checked it and everything seemed to be in order, and I got my phone back. So it was just this weird thing.
Oh, well, good, good, yeah. Well, I mean, I should say, that Saucer Spooks and Kooks. I mean, I did notice that a lot of the Japanese documentary footage was in the movie, was in the
Oh
documentary,
yeah, all through it.
and I think that you actually interviewed one of the guys that was part of that. as well. Seemed like you interviewed someone that was in the
He
movie.
he was
Yeah,
the man. He was the man.
yeah, he was the
He
main producer, director.
Yeah. So what's
but
the story with
Well, so
those particular documentaries?
yeah, I mean, he made several, there's like 10, maybe more than maybe 10 or 12 of these documentaries. They were like TV specials that they would air like prime time, in the 80s. I think the first one is in like 1980, and then they go all the way up to 89. And he produced all of these, and they were prime time with like Dulcie Base Underground stuff, Area 51. It's like it was really popular in Japan before most people even knew about it here. And so like people like Krista Tilton were like big stars over in Japan, and Bill Moore was like a big star there. Um, Bob Lazar later on, he became
How did they get wind of all this before you kind of
so
like it became popular over here?
yeah. So I asked because I was really curious, like what made you want to do these documentaries to this producer, Yaoi-san. And he told me, he's like, it was just an assignment. Like, um, the people at Nippon TV, some exec said, you're going to be the UFO guy. And so he's like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And so he just started researching it. And I think he was pretty plugged in with SRI people. And because he told me the story of how he met Uri Geller like really early on, and how he had come out to Stanford.
Yeah.
And he didn't come out and say SRI, but it seemed like it was that milieu. So, um, did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, that's
Yeah.
interesting that they got such a wind of it before we actually did.
Yeah, and
So,
it's
yeah,
crossed
go
my
ahead.
mind that, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
it has crossed my mind that, you know, Japan is like right off the coast of Russia. And so if they wanted to
yeah.
have some of these stories coming out, you know, it would be in closer proximity for Russia to pick up some of these pop culture things that were happening at that time. But
That's actually a good point. That's actually a good point.
They just get
Well,
really into like American subcultures too, so
hmm
that
very
must be
true.
part of it.
Yeah.
we should say, like Saucer Spooks and Kooks, it's about a particular time uh in the 80s. It's kind of like the current uh like UFO and alien abduction mythology and cattle mutilation mythology is kind of getting started. And that's kind of like the general time period. And I think you guys also go into the early 2000s with Project Serpo, which I do want to talk about. But Adam, I really wanted to get you, like, because I know people may be familiar with this, but like we may have not talked about it for a while. So it's kind of a little just a kind of run overview of kind of like Paul Bennewitz, because that's where you guys start, and I think that is a good place to start with Bennewitz and what happened there, because it's been a
Uh-huh.
little bit just for the listeners that may not be as familiar with it.
Yeah, as far as the timeline with Benowitz, it gets a bit confusing because when in the past when I've gave a thumbnail sketch of the Benowitz story, I saved the Myrna Hansen episode. Uh, I usually place that after his sightings at Kirtland Base, but actually, the thing that started, and this is what Bill Moore said at that famous MUFON conference in 1989, that the Bennewitz affair started with the Myrna Hansen incident. And so let's start there real briefly.
Sure.
Myrna Hansen, she was, I believe, 26 at the time, and her young son, who was, I don't know, 7, 8, they were in Eagle Nest, New Mexico, which is a small town near a larger town called Cimarron, and they saw a UFO hovering, shot a beam down on a cow, beamed it up into the ship, and she got sucked up into the ship, like in a tractor beam, her and her son. And she witnessed the cow being dissected, mutilated, and then she underwent a your typical UFO medical type experiment. She and her son, and then afterwards, she went to Cimarron and approached the local cops there. She was hysterical, and they didn't know what to do with her, but they knew about Gabe Valdez, who had already kind of made a name for himself at that time as the go-to cattle mutilation UFO guy. He was highway patrolman who knew Bennewitz during that period. They were both associated with APRO, the Aerial Phenomena Research Association. And so, for one reason or another, he took Myrna Hansen to Paul Bennewitz's house in Albuquerque, and Bennewitz knew Leo Sprinkle, a hypnotherapist who was regressing abductees during that period. And, they put Myrna Hansen under hypnotic regression. She recounted, this whole story about her being abducted, but also being taken to an alien base and undergoing, medical procedures. She broke loose and she was running through the facilities and saw these alien human hybrids and vats, all the nightmare imagery that later became so popular in the 90s with the X-Files. One thing I really wasn't aware of, and kind of learned it while making this film, how crazy that episode got at Bennewitz's house with Myrna Hansen, and her son was there. And it's not really clear from the tapes that Chris got a hold of. You can hear those in the film, but I believe Myrna Hansen's mother was also there. And, I always thought it was just like for a couple days she was there, but she was there for 2 or 3 weeks, and it became this whole crazy scenario where they were locked in this house. Bennewitz had all these different devices. He was monitoring the aliens, and he was devising a beam that could stop the aliens from beaming them. And you hear all this craziness on these tapes. At one point, he said his wife got knocked down by a beam. And, that was the initial story. So all of this happened, really before he started seeing UFOs over Kirtland Air Force Base. That, the Myrna Hansen incident was in talking
May 6, 1980.
Yeah, May 6, 1980. And
So,
I got the story a little bit wrong. He had already started filming and seeing things over Kirtland Air Force Base, but he didn't approach the military security at Kirtland Air Force Base until that whole incident with Myrna Hansen was going on. And what he was seeing, by the time he approached the military security there at Kirtland, the officials, he was well along in his belief that it was aliens that he'd filmed and photographed, and was picking up these signals over Kirtland Air Force Base. And interesting thing that Greg Valdez told me, who was Gabe Valdez's son, and I hadn't really contemplated it until I had interviewed him, but it was his belief or his suspicion that Myrna Hansen was basically part of this intel operation to disinform Paul Bennewitz.
Okay. Okay. Because I mean that's what I was. So you think that this was an initial operation to try to get to dissuade him or to get him off the trail of whatever it was actually, because something was actually going on at that Air Force base that he was
Hmm.
picking up on. Like that's how the story goes. That's how, Doty
Yeah.
gets recruited in there, and then they begin to mislead him down another direction. But do you think that Myrna Hansen, that whole thing was set up to mislead him
Well, I don't know for
initially?
sure.
Yeah.
There, you never know for certain with a lot of these
Right. Right.
characters, but what Doty said, and once again, you got to take what he says with a grain of salt.
Sure.
That what uh, Benowitz was photographing, filming. He had different doohickey devices he set up that were picking up these signals at Kirtland. These are all secret projects. This was the stealth bomber period, and they also had these advanced
Yeah.
spy satellites at Kirtland base, basically communication spy satellites that they were testing. He was picking up on all of this stuff, and he was even before he started working or talking to the Air Force, he was already believing these were aliens. He had a bit of a history dating back to the mid 70s. He had been with APRO and looking into cattle mutilations, going out to Dulce area and with Gabe Valdez and going on runs at night where they were seeing UFOs associated with cattle mutilations. And so, that, and once he started alerting the security there at Kirtland Base, because he was concerned that where he was seeing the different craft was over an area called Mansano Mountain, which was one of the largest storehouses. I think I've read where it was the largest storehouse of nuclear armaments during that period. So he considered it a national security threat. That's why he contacted the security at Kirtland Air Force Base about this.
Yeah,
And
and it could have been something that they were flying over,
yeah,
more than likely. Yeah.
and to try to sum this up real quick, according to Doty, the play there was okay, they encourage him to believe these are UFOs and aliens, but then they tried to redirect or misdirect him over to the Dulce area and even flew him out there on helicopters to take him an area where they were telling him there was a alien base, and they even, according to Doty, once again set up props there to take his interest away from Kirtland Air Force Base and basically go on a snipe hunt, in the Dulce area.
Was it possible too that what the things that he was seeing that they were trying to misdirect him from was like kind of early drone technology? I've heard that bandied about.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That, Greg Bishop writes about that in the book. I think that's one. There's all kinds of stuff going on at Kirtland Air Force Base and Sandia Labs. Not only drones, stealth aircraft, these communication satellites, but also the non-lethal weapon technology. And that's where, some
Yeah.
of the story with Benowitz, he thought he was being beamed by the aliens. He was actually having some physical reaction on his body, like little spider bites talk about in the movies, and the crazy stories about the little balls of light floating
Yeah, I was
around
about to ask you about that. Yeah, that's an aspect that um I don't know if I had ever actually, if I had read it, it may have, I didn't, it may not have paid attention to it, but in the movie Like that was something that I was like, oh, that's something that an aspect of the case that I never thought of before. Because he
Yeah, and
says at
it's
one point there's this little ball that rolls through, and he has somebody with him. I think it's Moore is with him actually, right?
hmm
And Moore asks him what this is, and he says, "Well, those are always around, like those
yeah,
come and go," as if it had just been happening pretty frequently. And I did notice that you interviewed Robert Guffey,
hmm
who's been on here
Right.
several times. Just a few uh, episodes ago, he was on here, and of course, he's most famous known for his book Camelio and non-lethal technology. So that aspect I think is there too, which I find pretty fascinating. But
yeah,
it just adds to the whole, charade that they were trying to pull on him, I guess. And it seemed like they were almost like messing with him, much like in Camelio, his friend Robert's friend Damien is being, messed up by the Navy. It almost seems like they're doing the same thing to Bennewitz, almost like terrorizing him
Yeah.
in his home. Yeah.
Well, he probably, he saw some tests that they were doing with other technology. I guess they figured they might as well test some other shit on him, since that's
Yeah.
what they were
Right.
doing there
Right.
apparently.
Right.
When I was doing the interview with Robert Guffey, we actually went into the similarities between the Benowitz case and his friend Damien.
Yeah.
But if you go on to like the YouTube channel, I'll be posting up a bunch of that interview, um, talking about the different aspects of it. So
Okay. Good. Yeah. Yeah.
Good
I'd like to
bonus
see that.
content.
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
there's tons of it.
I wanted to ask you guys, you had Chris Lambright in the film pretty prominently. Um, and I wanted to sort of get your thoughts because Lambright's book, Ex Descending, um, he sort of lays out that the most important part of the Benowitz case is actually before Myrna Hansen intersects with him. So Benowitz is filming on his roof November, December, January 1979 into 1980, and that's where he takes these films. And I think he shot them on like 16 millimeter film,
hmm
which is amazing that he even had access to that. And the craft that he filmed were things that, according to Chris Lambright and his research, and I'm not a physicist or an aeronautics expert, would have been things that wouldn't have been even remotely possible at the time, and that through his sort of subsequent perusals of online forums with people involved in like skunk works and experimental aircraft research, it's only been in the last 20 years or so that craft like that have even been popping up. And you can find he's got this guy that he talks a lot about in the book, Leek Marabou, who sort of was trying to create what the easiest way to explain it is laser uh propelled craft, where the laser is like ionizing the air and like reducing drag to get these objects up into the sky. And his idea is that Benowitz filmed something like that, but 25 years before we were sort of publicly seeing any inkling that anyone was even trying to make something like that. Um, I was wondering if you sort of bumped into anyone else besides Chris Lambright in the research that had talked about anything like that, or if you had any thoughts on it. He sort of gestures towards that it would have been incredibly strange, if it's not aliens, that it was something really bizarre that Benowitz would have been filming at that time, and that those films are what really led to like this sustained disinformation campaign on him.
hmm Well, I don't know if I can point to anybody else who, witnessed that type of craft. And in Lambright's book, you see some of the photos, which are pretty striking, strange, but as far as physics and all that, I can't really comment on any of that. But one interesting anecdote that kind of points towards perhaps how concerned Air Force intelligence had to do with a interview that a UFO researcher named Jim Campbell did with Bennewitz in, like, I believe it was 1982.
It was
And
84, actually.
what's that?
Yeah, the phone. Were you talking about the phone interview?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was 84. Just
Okay. And before that, before that interview, uh, Bennewitz had sent out a lot of those photos he had taken to get developed, and they were never returned. They were gone. It was his belief they'd been stolen by whoever, perhaps the Air Force, Men in Black. We don't know for sure. But uh, in this interview with McCampbell, Bennewitz was talking about that someone came by his house one day to show him this secret document called the Aquarius papers, or the Aquarius document. And he was going through it, and Bennewitz didn't say who it was that showed up with this document, but as he was going through it, his photos were inside this document that had been stolen or he had lost, however. And whoever presented him with this document, told him that this is top secret, national security. Do not share this document with anybody else, or you could be prosecuted. And they left him with the document, and supposedly put it in his safe. So that was like some of the hijinks that were going around to intimidate him, perhaps to keep a lid on, what he was witnessing there, that strange aircrafts at Kirtland Air Force Base.
Yeah, I think Bill Moore claims to have given him that document.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
see, that's another story, though.
yeah, of
and
course.
it might have been Moore, but he didn't name him in the interview. Moore's telling of the story real briefly, and you probably know this, Chris, was that Doty had shared a teletype about an Aquarius project that Moore described as an authentic looking document, nothing about the UFOs or aliens in the initial document he saw. Then later on, Doty brought another version of this Aquarius document that had been altered to include mentions of ETs and also the first mention ever of Majestic 12. And according to Moore, Doty pressured him to pass that along to Bennewitz to further disinform him, hoping maybe Bennewitz would take that before the press and wave it around and be discredited. And yeah, and Moore's telling he took it to Bennewitz and told him to be wary, let's kind of sit on this document for a while before we, make any statements about whether it's authentic in any way. So those two stories kind of conflict with each other, but that's like it is with a lot of looking into the Bennewitz affair and the different players involved and their um, how they present what went down.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so I did want to ask you, do you agree with the position that Myrna Hansen was some kind of a plant? Because she's incredibly mysterious, right?
Well,
She's
I
just
don't,
kind of there and gone.
yeah, I don't know for sure. So yeah, when I was researching it, get on the Google machine or whatever, get on newspapers.com, whatever sources you have, talk to other researchers. What do we know about Myrna Hansen? The only thing uh, we heard that Bill Moore said she moved to California. Krista Tilton claims she talked to Myrna Hansen in like 88. But she's a mysterious figure that, uh, uh, nobody really knows what became of her. If you Google Myrna Hansen, it was a famous actress. So was whoever Myrna Hansen saying she was Myrna Hansen, was she playing a role? I don't
Right.
know.
That's why that name, yeah, that's why it seems
Yeah,
like a familiar name. Yeah. Yeah, that's a
in the
very good point.
in the
Right.
Leo Sprinkle transcripts that I came across, uh, we and actually they showed up in Linda Moulton Howe's Alien Harvest, which is kind of a hard uh, book to find for. And she never had a major publisher, but and actually Chris Graybill there found it the copy for us. But in that, it has some of the transcripts of the Myrna Hansen abduction, and her son is mentioned in that transcript, and he has another last name. Um, Oftentimes, I've heard a lot of these abductees, especially Leo Sprinkle's abductees, he had aliases for them. And not to get off too much of a tangent, but uh, one of the guys we interviewed, David Rydell's been going through a lot of the Leo Sprinkle archives, and he actually came across a document that showed a lot of the people that Sprinkle was, hypnotically regressing, and it showed that he always used aliases when he talked to him. So that's one of the issues with Myrna Hansen as well. You know, yeah, there's some other odd aspects of her story that kind of gets into a My Lab type thing, and I don't even know if I want to go down that road. But yeah, that's something that Greg Valdez brought up, Gabe Valdez's son, the distinct possibility that she was part of that operation. And if, Greg was right there when a lot of that was going on, and if he said that, I feel that was probably Gabe Valdez's impression too, that she might have been part of this psyops. I do
Right.
I what do I believe or how certain do I feel about that? I don't know. It makes some amount of sense, but I don't know for sure.
Well, it's interesting because this is 1980, right? So there's a lot of things going on. That's the same year as Rendlesham Forest, and as you guys point out, it's also the same year that the Cash Landrum case happens,
Mm.
which I think is probably a legitimate thing of these ladies, these poor ladies, and their, I think it was the grandson and the son of one of them, I think was the relationship. But like, they end up getting this like radiation sickness, and of course the government says that it's a UFO, or they deny it, and that they've denied that the experience that they've had. And it's almost like they're not they're not going to receive any kind of payout from anybody. It's a kind of a, I think there was an actual experimental aircraft that they probably got exposed to, and the government was denying its existence. That's
Hmm.
basically what I think happened. So there's a lot of interesting things going on that year.
And Doty was right in the middle of that Cash Landrum thing too.
Right. Right.
But it seems like Doty was like actually a lot of the disinformation that he was putting out was driven by the concern that the Cash Landrum thing was going to get out, right? Because in in the Saucer Spooks and Kooks documentary, um, there's a portion of it where you guys are talking about that, right?
I mean, we go into that case a little, and then basically to kind of set up why it's in UFO Cover Up Live.
Right. Um, and there was some concern that if it became a legitimate if it was legitimized, there would be like a public panic about experimental aircraft just sort of flying around out of control. And
That's probably there should have been. I mean,
For real.
I think Doty told Greg Bishop that it was a nuclear powered aircraft, and it was so dangerous that there were like these it was like a bank of video cameras in 360 degrees around it, because the person piloting it had to sit in like a lead lined shell or something inside of it. And there was one of the UFO advocacy groups, I'm sorry, I can't remember which one, sort of pressured Becky Cash, right? Or is it Landrum?
Betty?
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Christopher.
Sure.
Into pushing this case forward, and they got nothing out of it, right? And she died of cancer.
Well, yeah, they weren't successful in court, and that one of the lawyers, I think it was Peter Gersten, who was representing her. Yeah, and he was part of that group, what, Citizens for to
stop UFO secrecy, right?
Something along those lines, yeah. And there was kind of an adversarial relationship between, the attorney Peter Gersten. There's a couple other, Barry Greenwood, who's in the movie, was part of this group, and they were trying to figure out what was going on with Doty and these spurious documents and Bill Moore. They had suspicions that they were just basically manufacturing a lot of these different stories to confuse, what was going on at that time. After her documentary Alien Harvest, Linda Moulton Howe had signed a deal to make a UFO documentary for HBO, which I guess she was going to call Alien Harvest. And one of the main focuses of that movie was going to be the Cash Landrum story, which she was looking into. That's once again where Doty came into the picture, and it seems like he was there to divert her, in the same way that he diverted Bennewitz's attention. I'm not sure if we covered this. I talk about it in the book. Yeah, we did get into it in the film, where he had that meeting with, this like spooky meeting with Linda Moulton Howe. It's like stagecraft, where he showed them, documents similar to the MJ-12 documents and stories about an alien in captivity and all of these things. And around that period, and we also touch on it in the film a little bit, Linda Howe basically outed Doty as a source for a lot of this information. I think that's one of the reasons, and perhaps a few other things, why he got in trouble during that period, and they like shipped him and his superior officer to West Germany, I guess, to cool their heels for a while to get them away from this basically boondoggle that they'd created.
But it also probably served to take, attention off of Bennewitz and the Air Force, and then also the Cash Landrum stuff. Like, it seemed like it was a good way to really distract
Mm-hmm.
and to
Yeah.
deflect. And I
Yep.
think it succeeded in that way, I suppose. Yeah, they also talk about that. I remember that was another thing they talk about. They talk about that in Mirage Men too, which covers similar ground. That it's that there was this whole thing, this whole mythology that he was telling her that that the aliens had been here for millennia. They had
Yeah.
created mankind, and there was all this kind of like ancient astronaut aspect to it as well. Like
Jesus was an
going
alien.
deep. Jesus was an alien. Yeah,
Oh,
all this
guys,
kind of shit like that.
I found some great footage of Linda Howe talking about just that, how she went into that office and Dodie showed her these papers, and
Yeah.
right there it said Jesus was an alien. And it was just the most, she's just talking about it like it's just the most mind-shattering thing that's ever happened to her, and it's changed her life completely, and it's good stuff.
Well, so did she actually believe? I've always kind of thought that she was very skeptical about what Dodie
No,
was saying.
I think she does. I've never taken
She
her to
does
be
believe it.
too
Yeah.
skeptical. Yeah. Seems
Yeah.
like it to me.
So what happened to that
Matter, she's a
documentary?
really
The
good
documentary
actor.
that it never that was supposed to be on HBO. Her documentary that never actually happened, I suppose.
No, it got derailed
It got derailed.
because well, she blames it on, whatever. These
Yeah.
people like Dodie helped derail it,
Well, and
by
then you guys,
by
yeah,
feeding her information, but at the same time, she
right,
seems to believe all that disinformation. So I don't know.
yeah,
But she
yeah.
did it as a book, right? Because the film was Alien Harvest, and then the book that you mentioned earlier is what came out of it.
Right.
Yeah, but the book is just a mishmash of stuff, Maybe it would have appeared in that film. I'm not really sure. I
Hmm.
mean, like there's transcripts of the Myrna Hansen stuff, but then like there's stuff from Bill Cooper in there of an alien he drew with a big nose. So it
Right.
seemed to me the book was just a mishmash of
She was just trying
crazy
to get
stuff.
a check.
What's that?
She was just trying to get a check.
Perhaps, yeah.
Do you guys feel like I just wanted to ask your opinion, Adam, Chris. Do you feel like Linda Howe sort of her reputation suffered more than a lot of her peers who were, putting out just as sort of cockamamie bullshit? Stan Freeman, for, as long as he beat on the MJ-12 stuff, he was still, people are a lot nicer to him,
Mhm.
in the long run. Whereas like Linda Howe always gets sort of ripped apart, even.
That's a good point.
Um,
I feel like she kind of does it to herself, but
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say, Chris. Go ahead.
I mean, she has her personality, but again, like, I don't know, Stan Freeman, I mean, not to speak ill of the dead, but yeah, to me,
Right.
he always did it to himself too, but it just seems like he got off a lot easier.
Yeah, well,
Well, he was a scientist.
That's true.
the time too, Linda, being a woman, it's probably has something to do with it.
No, absolutely. I think that's probably what Chris is really getting to.
Right.
I think she might have been treated a bit unfairly, and I think that might have been down to the fact that she was a woman, but also that she had a flamboyant personality. And I have to really thank you guys. You aggregated so much awesome footage, photography, and audio into the
Thanks.
film. Just like lots of stuff I'd never seen before or I'd seen in crappier quality. And there's a shot of her. She must be at a conference or something, and she's up at a podium and she's like wearing sunglasses and she
Yeah.
just looks so cool and like so insane. Like
She
because
has like a
everybody else
beret or
there is like
something.
a guy like Bill Moore, it's like a guy with a toupee and like sort of nerd glasses. And then Linda Howe is just like, no, I'm a rock star. Like I'm here and I'm gonna tell you about the alien plan to, hybridize our
Uh,
species or whatever.
here's the thing about something about Linda Moulton Howe. I've actually seen her give a presentation. This is back in 2008. It was like her and Whitley Strieber and um, uh, the conspiracy theorists that wrote all Jim Mars,
Oh wow.
and
Mount Rushmore.
here in Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she, the cases that she talks about, and you can get this impression just from if you listen to like Coast to Coast that she was on, where she would give these reports. Like she was always very, very thorough about everything that she documented, and it was always pretty impressive how thoroughly documented she would be about these things.
Well, I think
But
she really
then,
wanted to be, known as and thought of as a journalist
right, exactly.
more so than just a
Yeah, yeah,
UFO.
yeah, yeah. But then she would have just, you know, just kind of you turn around and you have like some wacky beliefs and it,
Yeah.
it was interesting to see. I was pretty impressed by her and to see that she's fallen for some of this stuff, disinformation. It's just like finding some of that out. It's been over the years has been kind of disheartening in a way.
Well, I also have friends that think she is actually, in on it and she's, you know,
Right.
doing this on purpose, but I
Yeah,
tend to
and that's a
believe.
possibility too.
Um, I guess the question for everybody is, I wanted to ask what everyone thinks about in these ideas of like a concerted effort to use UFOs for disinformation for whatever purposes. How much of this do you think is like, some kind of articulated, stated master plan that goes to the top, or like how much was really the leeway and room that people like Doty in that really murky world are just given to operate and like do what they do and create these worlds and
Yeah. There's a
you know
it's like a creative writing class for psyops. Yeah.
yeah, and I
Right.
think I don't know how much of it's really like a master plan as much as like just the because I think that the authorities want to be able to distance themselves from people like Doty when things are revealed as to what they're really like up to.
Well, I'll I'll say this real quick, just because we definitely get go Riley's thoughts on that. But I'll say as far as if there's any master plan, I think the master plan was a cover for experimental aircraft or
Yeah,
any other kind of experimental thing that they were doing.
and they just gave him the
It
freedom.
served it served a wider purpose in the context of the Cold War to keep that the what you're seeing, we don't know what it is. And if you want to believe in aliens, that's
Yeah,
great because that means that they're going to look at aliens and not us, and your credibility is going to be strained. I
and
think
but
that was
people like
if there
him
was a
were like,
master plan, it was
yeah,
that.
people like him were the creative writers, like you said, and it
Yeah,
didn't come
yeah,
from some like top Pentagon
yeah.
suit or something like.
But I'm not sure if it was like exactly a conscious thing. It's just like
Yeah,
we would like the American public to believe that this is what this is rather than something we're working on so that the information doesn't get leaked out.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Anyone else? Anyone else's thoughts about that?
Oh, 100% what you guys just said, but I think there's even more to it. There's like multiple agendas. The way Moore and Doty, to some extent, presented it, was that it went way up to the top of the CIA and all, but I've never really bought into that. I think it was this lower level where, at least at Air Force Intelligence, Kirtland Base, yeah, fine, let's let Bennewitz believe whatever he wants to believe as long as, we can keep him from figuring out, exactly what's going on here at
Right, right.
Kirtland and revealing that to the public. But also, I see it with Lou Elizondo too. I think what was going on there that Doty had this ambition to become UFO famous or profit from this, perhaps with more. They had this grand plan. I mean, they were working on a book together as early as '82 before the Majestic documents came out about the story of this brave UFO whistleblower who was based on Doty. So I think, that I think Doty was going rogue on a lot of this stuff. And I think his superiors were okay with it, to to a certain degree, but
Right.
he probably took it far, he took it way farther than they intended. It kind of blew up in his face as well because what I heard, the reasons he got in trouble was leaking classified information. And I think I know what this was. You had first there was code names like Aquarius was a top secret project, but it had nothing to do with MJ-12 or aliens. And you can actually go to the Black Vault, and there's some FOIA documents that talked about it was the Department of Energy. I try to forget exactly what the project was. So he was spilling stuff like that, and there's also aside from all the hoaxed, spurious documents, there was another document that I believe he was responsible for trickling it out, and it had to do with a incident report that he filed at Kirtland Base about a UFO sighting. This might have been part of the operation that he created this incident report and claimed that there's some type of strange aircraft around he filed these documents at the same time, as Bennewitz was seeing stuff. So there's this part of the disinformation operation that might have been okayed by his superiors, but this document later leaked, and it was like a lot of these documents around Doty, had been altered a little bit, kind of to cover his tracks, but I think eventually people figured out it had to be him that was spilling a lot of this stuff. And I think, long story short, he was setting the groundwork. I think the same way Lou Elizondo did, in a sense, was to basically paperwork he could point to later to show that he was a UFO whistleblower involved
Right.
with researching UFOs.
Probably be a lot more exciting lifestyle than what he was doing before, having to clock in every day.
Mm-hmm. And up to that point, he'd basically been a security guard. I don't think he'd been a special agent too long.
I'd like to ask a little bit about the Project Serpo part. You guys added that in. I know you also talk about it in the book, but I thought that was interesting because you guys go through the whole, like, this is the setup for what is going to later become the X-Files. You talk about John Lear, which we talked about a lot of that before in the show, and UFO Cover Up Live. We've talked about that. There's a lot of, UFO Cover Up Live is a classic. But then you get into the Serpo stuff, and I remember this one like really well because this was about like 2005. I remember this being on Coast to Coast. I
Mhm.
remember just like, following that story pretty closely. And I'm not quite believing it, but just like thinking it was an interesting story. But just like the Project Serpo stuff even has its own ties to some of this intelligence apparatus too. You guys kind of speculate.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty spurious. I mean, the connections there are pretty loose, it seems like, but I mean, Hal Puthoff and Kit Green do turn up in these emails, I guess, where they're trying to figure out supposedly if this is an alternate reality game. Like, it's a little unclear exactly what they had to do with it other than that, but
Yeah. Right.
yeah.
Doty, though.
Yeah, Doty's all in it, of course.
So Doty's involved with the Project Serpo stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, he was like the main guy.
Oh wow, okay.
Well,
So
supposedly.
this may have just been something he was doing on his own, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. I think Mark Pilkington in the film speculates that Serpo was kind of just a way to jumpstart the UFO narrative again, since it had kind of died down after, in the mid early 2000s. There was really nothing going on with the UFO scene, or the story.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
Yeah, as far as Doty, his role, when all this started coming out, it was like on a UFO bulletin board. I forget the one exactly, but
Was it
uh,
above top secret?
yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was.
right. Yeah.
And so this person who claimed they were, you know, whatever high level intelligence military dude started spilling the secrets of Serpo, and some internet sleuths started looking into it and trace it all these emails to Doty using this alias. Of course, as always, he denied any involvement, but it seemed pretty obvious from the evidence presented that he was in on the caper, and it kind of echoed a lot of the earlier stuff about this um, exchange program, the secret treaty between the humans and aliens that had, uh, you know, that it came, that was connected to some of the MJ-12 documents and materials, and you could even trace back. They picked up some of the storyline from Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I
Right,
think
right.
even some of the emails, the Serpo emails from Anonymous, they even talk about UFO Cover Up Live and how they were on the right track and Doty was, he was telling the truth and it was Zeta Reticuli back then, but then I guess they kind of narrowed it down to Planet Serpo within the Zeta Reticuli star system or whatever. So,
Well, I mean,
Science.
and that's the thing about just to explain briefly, like Serpo is this whole. I guess it was these like messages or things that people were saying they were receiving from this project, that it was an exchange of like um, people from Earth to this planet called Serpo,
We
and
sent
there were
our
pictures.
astronauts in.
I think there were pictures too that were described. I remember hearing about these pictures, and they were telling you what was on the pictures, but you never actually got to see the pictures.
And so who was the Project Camelot guy that was the
Bill Ryan?
yeah, Bill Ryan, I think his name was. And so what year did you go to that conference, Chris, where they rolled out the Serpo
That
stuff with
was
Bill Ryan?
yeah, that was 2006.
And so that's covered in Mirage Men. We might have covered, I think we covered it some in the film, but Doty showed up there as well. He was whispering in Bill Ryan's ear, I guess, confirming stuff. And one morning, Bill Ryan woke up and a envelope had been stuck under his door, and he opened it up, and there was alien writing on it, and it was like all of this seemed like it was straight out of the Doty playbook. And you can see in Mirage Men how Bill Ryan's kind of freaking out, trying to figure out what to do with all this revolutionary, paradigm shattering information that he's been receiving. And I'm sure Doty was helping to, uh, you know, pump up the paranoia all the more.
Right.
I mean, he's
Exactly.
with him at the conference in Mirage Men in the book.
Yeah,
He, he's
they
like,
were they were hanging out together. Greg Bishop was there too, and he was trying to calm Bill Ryan down. It's a, this kind of take a deep breath here, guy, and I've seen this happen to other UFO researchers where they get too deep into this stuff and they, go off the deep end.
yeah. And then Bill Ryan's like, he said he's gonna show me a movie of a talking alien. Like, I gotta go see this. It's in his hotel room.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which that's like one of the things that I really would like to see are the things like that, and those like CRT monitor broadcasts that were coming across the street into Paul Bennewitz's house
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
with the alien like on the video screen. Yeah, I
Well,
would.
it's just to switch it up a little, the footage, that like we have this footage we want you to see, that thing has been,
Yeah.
that trope has been, it's the dangling carrot for the filmmaker. It happened to that filmmaker Emmenegger in the
Yeah.
70s.
Right.
And then,
Hmm.
it happened to Linda Howe, like that was going to be her big finale was for the,
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, that's what, at least according to her, you're refreshing my memory, what is the main thing that derailed her UFO film, that Doty and his sources were going to provide her with, yeah, film footage, documents, etc., that would prove, the that aliens are here.
right. And so, yeah, when that footage never surfaces or it just keeps getting pushed off, it's just like, a big letdown. So, um, I don't know where I was going with that, but just reminded me of that.
Yeah, Emmenegger, they pitched him the Holloman Air Force Base story. Um, and then the
Hmm.
documentary came out without the footage, and he had to do like an animated recreation of that.
Just like
Right.
you guys' film.
We were looking for the real footage, but we can never track it down.
Oh yeah, there is an interesting part of the film where there's a reptilian visitation. You guys do a reenactment.
Speaking of um, Chris, filmmaker Chris, um, what was the inspiration for the animation? Who did the animation, and like what was the inspiration for the styles? It really reminded me of the '90s video game Flashback, which was like
Oh,
the absolute pinnacle of graphics for Sega Genesis at the time when I was
yeah,
like
man, you
10 years
totally
old.
nailed it. I played that. I didn't play Flashback, but I played the one before it, which was Another World.
Okay, okay.
I That was one of my favorite video games growing up, and I've always wanted to do some kind of project in that style, and so that was this project.
Okay, awesome. I thought it looked really familiar. I was like, there's no way it's just yeah, there's no relation there. Awesome.
Yeah, it's such a great because it was all rotoscoped, but it was rotoscoped on like the Amiga,
Yeah,
like this really ancient computer system. And so it just has such a great look to it. And so yeah, all those animations are were in that vein.
really cool because that was definitely one of my favorites at the time when I was just getting into that 90s UFO television mystery
Oh yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Flashback was a
Chris
really good one too.
Chris did a lot of he's an animator, so he did a lot of the animation here. And there was other people he called on to help him out.
Yeah, a good buddy of mine did the alien reptilian recreation. And I gave him the the sketch that Tal had drawn, and then I was like, you can kind of riff on it, kind of make it your own. And so he came up with this big butt alien that was, kind of horny. So I was like, all right, let's just roll with it. I liked it.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
curious.
didn't know quite what to make of that when I saw it, but we'll roll with it.
I mean, I don't think it has to be too accurate, so
Yeah, I mean you got creative freedom because you don't have all the revelatory promised uh, proof footage from decades past. So
right.
you get artists.
I was curious about what you guys' thoughts are about what's going on now, with the latest promise of UFO. Well, I don't know if I should say disclosure, but revelations that the Pentagon has been ordered. Of
Yeah,
course,
which is really
there's
cool because like your film really ties to the past before the main part of the story and
right.
into the present time as well. So I thought that was a really good way.
Yeah, because you guys tie in a lot of the same players that from the past that have shown that show up in this like kind of A-tip and this
Mm.
whole like nexus that's going on now. But
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw Hillary Clinton's little speech after her uh
yes,
she
yes,
for some reason was repeatedly asked about aliens. So I
she
thought
was asked about UFOs. Yes, yes,
what a
and,
perfect
and
way to
Pizzagate.
see that.
Yes,
But yeah, so
I mean, do you think that
Yeah,
there's
that
anything? I mean, I mean, I'm very skeptical. I just don't think there's anything that's going to come out. But I mean, we'll wait and see, I guess. But
hey, well, Obama was talking about it. Then the next day, Trump said he's going to release the alien files. So
right,
maybe it's coming.
right, right.
we really need something to save us at this point. So yeah,
True, that's true. Yeah.
let's bring it on.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess also what Adam's asking is like, are are they going to be able to just do this same game indefinitely? Because obviously it's almost, you know, it's not as cool. They don't
Well,
get
I
to
mean,
maybe they
yeah,
do get to
because
drive they get to drive like masses of people insane instead of just like one Bennewitz.
Right,
well,
Um,
right.
but about 2.5 years ago, you know, Dave Grush just showed up out of nowhere, talking
Yeah,
a big game, saying all this stuff about what he had to reveal, and then, predictably, really, none of that went anywhere.
right.
hmm
It was just a little step in the
Yeah,
decades long campaign, or what's you could posit that to it, just like this decades long disinformation campaign. But that's getting a little, maybe, I don't know, too conspiratorial. Maybe, I don't know.
But yeah, they can trot it out every yeah a few years, and they seems like they have been with this latest iteration of UFO disclosure. I lost interest pretty a few years ago, even tracking and following these guys. It's like we're not getting anywhere. You guys are boring. People in Congress are just uh, I don't know. They're propping these people up because they want to get clickbaits, and get fun, raise funds or whatever. But it's like, yeah,
Really
it's not going
boring.
anywhere, folks.
Yeah.
Well,
Really
you guys really captured it in the end of the film very well. That what does seem to be like a tangible possibility is that they can increase private contracts being awarded to the aerospace companies
Mhm.
Yeah.
to quote study this and develop new weapons and surveillance platforms. And
Yeah.
that and then it serves the dual purpose of a distraction in the news cycle from, I mean, what take your fucking pick.
Yeah.
Right.
A few years back,
I don't know
Elle
what
was on.
I
Elle
don't
was
know what we would need to distract ourselves from at this moment, but
At this point.
sorry,
one
girl.
of the things they were pushing were these like uh, platforms, aerial platforms. I'm not sure to monitor UFOs. Like we don't have all kinds of technology monitoring shit coming in to the atmosphere, but uh, Elizondo and that ilk, different people he was associated with, was coming up with different apps that could, basically monitor UFOs, and you'd report them to, it's not really clear who. And so
Yeah.
that was kind of a big thing for a while. And it looked like just perhaps, Elizondo with his history and intelligence, counterintelligence, you have this app with people signing up for sharing whatever, was like, it could also be turned around and used as some type of surveillance system. So there's those type of uh, potential government contracts that they were trying to get people amped up about at that time. And Elizondo was involved in a number of different things. It seemed like I think that whole group kind of involved with too the Stars Academy, all these ex military intelligence people. Maybe they're looking for a new career. Once they all retired.
Do you think it could be like like in the context of Bigelow, he's really just picking up some scraps in, relation to like the rest of the aerospace and military industrial complex. Like is this a game for like the underdogs, looking for those scraps and the startup companies trying to break into that space?
Ah, that's
I
an
mean,
interesting idea, huh?
yeah,
That's
like 'cause why would,
that.
Lockheed
Yeah.
Martin or whoever else probably isn't, investing money in like running these type of, weird amateur psychological operations or whatever you want to call it. Like it did a lot for Bigelow
Well,
on his
that's
level.
great. Yeah, no, that's great observation. Scraps, because basically, I mean, Bigelow's a billionaire or whatever, but the contracts he has picked up are scraps. Just
Yeah.
it's millions of for doing these weird little projects. It's kind of how Elizondo came into the picture with that uh, government project that Bigelow had with Harry Reid, was involved in Congress, and it was
Yeah.
basically seemed like a boondoggle to me, where they were, it was just kind of research papers on uh, advanced propulsion and electromagnetic stuff, and So yeah, it's and uh, part of the motivation for pushing the ETs, aliens, paranormal stuff is to keep some of those, these projects going for that circle of folks.
Yeah,
Bigelow and
hmm.
I was going to say the whole story with A-Tip and then it being revealed that it's more of a weapons research
Right.
program. I do wonder if, you know, some of that was figured, or you plant the A-Tip story knowing that someone's going to figure out the ASAP thing, and then the ASAP thing gets all more or popular, and then how much of that is like there to psych out the Chinese or whatever? Like,
Hmm.
oh, they have invisibility, or they're studying these things, or that aspect I did think about at some point as well. I
And
don't
that
know.
maybe they have to like really subcontract this stuff into this really murky world because a lot of what experiencers probably have been are victims of these weapons and weapons testing, right? So like
Right. Yeah,
you
good
have to
point.
like really relegate it to this like murky subcontracted world of all these like weirdos and um because you're essentially just like damaging and hurting people and yeah, come out to my ranch, we're gonna look at the weird shit happens here, and someone's just like beaming some shit at you and seeing how it burns you or fucks with your head, like
Right.
pretty dark.
I laugh, but yeah, Skinwalker Ranch, once again, Bigelow owned that. The cover is, yeah, there's whatever, uh, aliens or weird phenomena going on there, just basically
Ancient
as
spirits.
yeah, this
Right.
a
Werewolves.
cover story. Yeah, there was werewolves involved. A cover story like the cover story for Kirtland Base.
Last
Mm.
year I did drive up to the driveway and took a picture. I was at a treasure hunting conference
Oh,
in
with like the
Utah.
little security box.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's like a giant, like one of those security camera things that hitch on a trailer or whatever. You see in like parking lots for the police. They had like one of those and a bunch of other stuff and big warning signs and
You better
pretty.
watch out, man. They've had a lot of walk-ins. I don't
Yeah,
know. I read the book. Like,
yeah,
something might follow you home, dude.
yeah. I didn't cross the threshold, so
Oh,
I'm
all
safe.
right. You're safe then.
I do have some
Yeah, the real
anecdotal stories I can tell you guys after we stop recording.
the real story may be, they were doing secret uh, experiments, government funded shit there at Skinwalker, and they came up with this whole cover story type thing. Then Bigelow sold it, moved the operation out. Nothing's going on there, but they're, with the film TV series, they're keeping the myth alive.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard I've heard that possibility. I mean, I think there was an article that came out not long ago or a few years ago that said that Skinwalker was a place where they were testing some non-lethal weapons.
Makes sense, yeah.
But
Mhm.
it's a really fun myth, though. I think the first time I heard Skinwalker was at that 2006 conference, and it was just like werewolves and wow, like these people.
Mystical Indian shit.
Oh man, it was rich. It was so fun. I
Oh,
was
I
um,
was impressed. I heard said another conference around that time with George Knapp and Colm. What's his name?
Colm
That site.
Kelleher, Colm
Yeah,
Kelleher.
they were both there doing the presentation. I was like, oh, wow.
really
And
good stuff.
at that time, felt Knapp was a legitimate journalist, and this other scientist guy. It's like, well, okay, this
He's
is
on TV.
really interesting. These are actual scientists involved, and they were collecting data. And okay, but we've never seen any data. And
So there's never a report. What was it? Was it NIDS? Was that what
Yeah.
their
Oh,
organization was?
Yeah.
Was there? There was never a report that definitively came out on.
no,
No, not at all. Yeah,
and it
yeah,
tied in with NIDS. I mean, that's
yeah,
where you look at this cast of characters. One of them is John Alexander,
Mm.
yeah. How much of this was a
and I
tax
think
write-off for Bigelow?
A-Tip and Alexander was part of NIDS, after he retired. But there was a book that came out called Out There in the late 80s that talked about a secret UFO program. And they used pseudonyms for the different people involved, but one of them was John Alexander, who was running this program. I don't think it was so much UFOs as it was the same thing that was going on with the Bigelow project, where they're doing different scientific experiments, non-lethal weapons, that type of stuff, and UFOs kind of factored in, or they brought it in. They called the group the Advanced Theoretical Project, I believe, ATP. And then, sometime later, I think ATIP might have been modeled after that, because it was, it's kind of based on the same thing. These different pseudoscientists that were connected with Bigelow, that were part of these different government contracts, doing these
Yeah.
different. Some of them are just like theoretical papers.
It's some real asshole shit, man. If someone like invited you basically on a ghost hunt, right? And then you're getting like some weird technology
Hey, if
being
they're paying me, yeah, sure.
burned and radiation and getting sick. Like, God.
Well,
Yeah.
that's how I kind of envision it sometimes too. They'd call people out there, and they're like creating some type of effects just to see the psychological
Yeah.
reaction, how people deal with it.
Yeah, the full range from psychological to physical.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, the thing is though, too. I mean, I think that it's a genuinely weird place that probably were genuinely weird things
Yeah,
happen.
it is weird out there for
Yeah,
sure. And I do believe in all kinds of weird metaphysical shit at the same time. It's just they're not, all this isn't mutually exclusive.
yeah. I mean, I think that there's a basis in fact, right? There's a basis there. Now, whether or not you had the undead direwolf at the beginning of the book. If you guys remember that, I don't know if that happened, but it was pretty
Well,
cool.
yeah.
I was convinced at the time. I was like, whoa.
No, I wasn't. When I read the book, it was like I got through that direwolf part, and I was like, "This is bullshit." I did quit. I quit reading. It was
I wasn't
just
as
there
I
was
wasn't as discerning in my
nothing.
in my early to mid 20s, so I wasn't. It's been a blast having you guys on. Chris, was there anything else that you wanted to ask before
Oh, I
we kind
think
of call it?
we hit all the best stuff for sure.
Good. Yeah, good.
Thank you
Good.
guys for allowing me to sit in.
Yeah,
Anytime, man.
yeah.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
Yeah, this has been yeah, I've enjoyed talking about this. Like it's probably one of my favorite subjects in the UFO field because it shows just how much a lot of this is a construct in a way.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it like there's the UFO narrative and then there's the UFO phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like you were saying, like there you maybe do believe in metaphysical or paranormal, yet everything that we hear about on the internet or from the Pentagon or whatever, it's totally different. It's a completely different thing. Maybe there's some overlap between the two, but I kind of highly doubt it. But does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
yeah, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. Uh, well, guys, tell us where the movie is available and how people can watch it.
It's at saucers, spooks, and kooks.vhx.tv, and you can rent or buy it there.
Okay.
You should say basically you can get there through the portal, which is a Substack for Saucer Spooks and Kooks. And we
Yeah,
also have a podcast we started.
Awesome. Go
I'm
there first.
I'll be posting the second episode of the podcast tomorrow. I don't know when this airs, but
Okay, but this should probably be up by next week.
okay.
But
Well,
yeah,
that'll be up.
If you're editing
okay,
it, Adam, so maybe 2 weeks.
yeah, all right.
Also, if you happen to be in New York City, it's playing the Philip K. Dick Film Festival on the 13th.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, at these, I think it's called the Cinema Club or the
Okay.
Producers Club. That's what it's called.
Are there any plans to put it on like wider streaming services, or just to have it through the to be bought or rented
Yeah,
on the website?
right now there's no plans for anything other than where it is. That's kind of where it's going to live unless something comes up, something,
What
otherwise.
about a physical media version, a
You
DVD?
know, yeah, some people have been asking about that. I was going to take some kind of survey and to see like how many people might be interested in that, and then maybe get together a Kickstarter if enough people are. I don't know.
Yeah. There's some really great services who do, very affordable DVDs too. So
Yeah,
I would love to have a copy just to, ensure that I can have it for forever.
sure,
A
sure.
Kickstarter with special features, additional shit.
There you go.
Yeah, there's plenty of that. So it would make a good Blu-ray or DVD. It's just about having that interest and so I don't have to pay 7 grand or whatever.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned too that there is a YouTube channel as well. So is the
Yeah,
podcast on the YouTube channel, and you've got
it's all
other
linked
other
up.
views?
Yeah, you can
Oh,
find it
nice.
all pretty
Okay,
easily.
good. I want to get subscribed to that.
Just briefly, the idea behind the podcast was because we had so much additional footage and interviews and materials. At one point we were even playing around with it, it being a 4-part series. That didn't quite work out, but just the wealth of material we have I foresee a lot of podcast episodes, depending on, how long we stay interested in doing that.
Cool.
Oh, good, because I'd really love to hear that. Yeah, yeah. Gorightly's podcast back in the day was one of the first podcasts I listened to.
Hell yeah. Untamed
Yeah,
Dimensions.
Untamed Dimensions. Yep.
What Adam, what do you have up next? You're working on a new book, right?
I am, but it's top secret. But
Okay.
did you hear I'm coming to Tacoma soon?
Yes, I did. Look forward to seeing you.
Okay, I will send you an email with details. But yeah, I've been working on and almost done with a book on Fred Krisman.
That's what I've heard.
And Chris is going to do the cover for me. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I've been
nice.
working on that.
That's all I can say right now.
And Gorightly, and you, all the links are still the same as far as
That's
like.
all. Yeah, all my stuff.
Okay. Where people can reach
AdamGoRightly.com
you.
and Amazon for books, but people need to go to the Substack. That's where the action is going to be
Okay.
happening in the Saucers, Spooks, and Kooks Substack.
Nice. Yeah, we'll check all that out as well. And Chris Corry, people can find you. Do you still have the Instagram account for all the the older UFO ephemera stuff?
It's still up. I just got out of the habit of updating it. So if you want to look at it, Vintage UFOs is still there on Instagram, but it's been a couple
Oh,
of years.
yeah, I know that website.
Oh, cool.
And he's got a lot of music, so plug some of that.
Oh yeah, it's the Bygone album is out now on Smart Records. If you like bands like UFO and Blue Oyster Cult, check it out.
Oh, cool.
Love Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh, yeah.
Well, nice. All right, guys, and of course, me and Sergio, we are Conspirinormal, and we'll be coming back at you sometime next month. But I want to thank everybody for being a part of this,
Yeah.
and we will talk to y'all soon.